April 1526. A field outside Delhi. Two armies face each other across the dust of northern India. On one side, Ibrahim Lodi, Sultan of Delhi, commanding 100,000 soldiers and 1,000 war elephants. He has held this land for years. He believes he will hold it again. On the other, Babur, a Central Asian warlord with 12,000 men, no territory, and nothing left to lose. Babur has already lost Samarkand, the city he wanted above all others. He has been a refugee king, fighting across the steppes for decades. This battle, the First Battle of Panipat, is his final gamble. He lines up his artillery. He unleashes his mobile cavalry flanks. And by the end of a single day, Ibrahim Lodi is dead, the Delhi Sultanate is finished, and Babur has won an empire he did not quite expect to keep. This is where the Mughal Empire begins. Babur is an unlikely founder. A descendant of both Timur and Genghis Khan. He combines the brutal military genius of his ancestors with a genuine love of poetry, gardens, and memoirs. His autobiography, the Baburnama, is one of the most vivid personal documents of the medieval world. But ruling India proves harder than conquering it. The heat oppresses him. His commanders want to go home. Rebellions break out immediately. When Babur dies in 1530, just 4 years after Panipat, he leaves behind an empire that feels more like a claim than a fact. His son Humayun nearly throws it all away. Humayun is cultured, well-meaning, and strategically inconsistent. He loses the empire entirely in 1540, driven out by the Afghan chieftain Sher Shah Suri, who proves a more capable administrator than either Babur or his son. Humayun spends 15 years in exile, in Persia, in Sindh, scraping together allies and resources. Before he finally retakes Delhi in 1555, he enjoys his reclaimed throne for 6 months. Then he falls down a staircase and dies. The empire passes to a 13-year-old boy named Akbar. What follows is one of the most extraordinary reigns in world history. Akbar rules for 49 years. Under him, the Mughal Empire expands to cover most of the Indian subcontinent. From Kabul in the northwest to Bengal in the east, from Kashmir in the north deep into the Deccan. He commands armies in the field well into middle age, sleeping in the saddle and eating sparingly on campaign. He is a military commander of genius, personally leading campaigns that lesser rulers would have delegated entirely. But Akbar's greatness lies less in conquest than in governance. He inherits a Muslim empire sitting atop a Hindu majority. He abolishes the jizya, the tax levied on non-Muslims. He marries Rajput Hindu princesses, not as political hostages, but as genuine partners whose families become Mughal generals and governors. He holds philosophical debates at his court, inviting Muslim scholars, Hindu priests, Jain monks, Zoroastrian thinkers, and Jesuit missionaries to argue theology in his presence. He creates Din-i-Ilahi, blending elements from multiple faiths. It never catches on beyond his inner circle, but the impulse it represents defines his entire rule. His administrative genius is equally remarkable. He standardizes land revenue across the empire using actual agricultural surveys. He promotes officials on merit, not birth. He is also illiterate. Akbar never learns to read. He absorbs everything, poetry, history, philosophy, theology, through listeners who read to him. This is among the most quietly remarkable facts about the man who builds the greatest empire of his age. When Akbar dies in 1605, the Mughals are at their height. His son Jahangir inherits a stable, wealthy empire and is content to enjoy it. A refined aesthete, deeply interested in painting and natural history, Jahangir presides over the golden age of Mughal court art. He is also increasingly dominated by his wife, Nur Jahan, who governs the empire with genuine skill from behind a careful fiction of deference. Shah Jahan, who follows, pursues glory in stone. He builds the Taj Mahal, a tomb for his beloved wife Mumtaz, who dies in childbirth in 1631. It takes 22 years and 20,000 workers to complete. He builds the Red Fort in Delhi. He relocates the Mughal capital to Shah Jahan. His reign is magnificent, expensive, and already stretched too thin at its edges. Then comes Aurangzeb. Shah Jahan's third son seizes power in 1658 and executes his brothers. He rules for 49 years, the longest reign since Akbar. And he dismantles almost everything Akbar built. Aurangzeb reimposed the jizya on non-Muslims. He banned music and dance at court. He destroyed Hindu temples and replaced them with mosques. He sleeps on a simple mat, refuses wine, and spends his personal savings, earned by copying the Quran by hand and sewing prayer caps, on nothing but his own burial shroud. He is also the single greatest author of the Mughal decline. The Deccan campaigns exhaust the empire. Regional governors, far from Delhi, begin acting as independent rulers. The Marathas, a Hindu confederacy from the western Deccan, emerge as a major power, fighting the Mughals to a standstill and eventually beyond. When Aurangzeb dies in 1707, the empire technically still exists. But the mechanisms that made it work, the revenue system, the administrative loyalty, the multi-faith coalition of elites, are fracturing. What follows is a cascade of weak emperors, civil wars, and territorial losses. The Marathas advance. Nader Shah of Persia sacks Delhi in 1739 and carries away. The British East India Company arrives, initially as traders, eventually as the dominant military power on the subcontinent. The last Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, is a poet with no army and no real territory. When the revolt of 1857 fails, the British depose him, exile him to Rangoon, and formally abolish the Mughal Empire. He dies in Burma, writing poetry in exile. The Mughals left behind something no colonial power could dismantle: the Taj Mahal. Miniature painting traditions. Urdu literature, a language born at the intersection of Persian, Arabic, and Hindi, forged in Mughal courts and now spoken by hundreds of millions. Architectural forms that define the Indian subcontinent to this day. The administrative structures Akbar built became the skeleton of later British rule. An empire that began with a desperate gamble on a dusty field outside Delhi lasted 3 centuries and shaped a civilization. It began with Babur's artillery at Panipat. It ended with a poet in exile. Everything in between is the story of India.